Today is a very big day in the history of cryptocurrency.
Yeah, huge day, right? I mean, today we're going to find out the sentencing of SBF, and it should be an interesting one.
Yeah, and believe it or not, Diana, we are on our very first live stream. It is now sending, it is now receiving. So welcome to our followers out there, to our
Yay!
subscribers. Go ahead, if you will, and wake up the algorithm. Go ahead and hit the like, subscribe button. We look forward to catching up to your chats with the two of us playing hostess with the mostess and producer. It's going to be difficult to respond to that commentary in real time, but we can't wait to see what people say, think, believe in the comments. So leave comments down below, chat on the
Yes,
side, like,
please.
subscribe, wake that algorithm up.
Yes. Yes. Get us some likes. Subscribe right down there. See that down there? Go hit that
Yeah,
right
go
there.
ahead and hit that button. You like that ding noise? It makes a nice little noise when you click it.
I
Ding.
like the ding noise.
Yeah,
Makes me
it's
feel
very,
accomplished.
very soothing. Although this
Yes.
morning, what do you think's going through Sam Bankman-Fried's mind? There's a
They're predicting somewhere between 40 to 50 years. I mean, he was found guilty on 7 counts of conspiracy and fraud. So his lawyers are pushing for 6.5 years, but I don't think 6.5 years even comes close to covering 7 guilty counts of conspiracy and fraud. But it'll be interesting to see, how it plays out. We've seen judges go a little rogue in New York lately, so it's really hard to predict what they're going to do.
And so I want to take a minute, and I'm sure the listeners will understand if you're looking at your phone for a second to try to catch up to this in real time. I've got some live feeds set up. I do have a great video from your friend and mine, Mackenzie Sigalos, from a few days back that I want to kind of play as we try to stay up to speed with what is going on. So let's start there because she sets the table with what's at stake here in terms of how guilty is he? I mean, we know he was found guilty, I believe, on 7 charges, but the sentencing, it could be a very light 5, 6 years, or it could be a
Yeah.
life sentence, 100 years.
What could you imagine though? What that sends to other people who commit fraud and conspiracy in cryptocurrency? I think you're just setting a bad precedent. I think it's
Oh, yeah.
dangerous if they let him get off easy.
So let's take a listen to Mackenzie here. I'm going to play it a little bit faster for our listeners. Check it out.
This is quite literally Sam Bankman-Fried's final chance to make a direct appeal to Judge Lewis Kaplan. This is an old school, no nonsense judge who's a legend in the Southern District of New York. He had zero patience for Sam's demeanor on the stand in October. And that's really the thing that we're looking out for here. Can Sam change Judge Kaplan's mind? And the only way that he can really do that is one, if he takes a stand, and then two, if this time around he accepts some responsibility for what happened to FTX customers. The judge will also give the government and the defense one last chance to make their arguments. And without a jury in the room, there's nothing that's really off limits in terms of talking points. Bankman-Fried just added another attorney to his roster, Mark Mukasey. This is a former federal prosecutor who helped the Nikola founder get a 4-year prison sentence instead of the 11 years that prosecutors were after. I am very interested to hear what he might have to say later today. And it's also possible the victims will take the stand. From there, it's all Judge Kaplan, who tends to give lengthy speeches around his rulings, like when he sent SBF back to jail in August.
So there you go. There's kind of the background.
Yeah. So it could
And
be a little bit of a long day, right? We might not have an answer anytime soon.
no, this thing could take off and take on a life of its own. The sentencing was supposed to be scheduled at 8:30. Like you, I get my news on Twitter. How about, is that where you kind of pick up the latest and greatest?
Not mine's YouTube. I know.
Yours is YouTube. Okay.
Yeah, it's between like Google, news, current news, and then YouTube.
Well, and what I'm going to do, because we discussed this a little bit earlier, I'm going to also provide a live feed right now. Just check in with Bloomberg. I'm sure they're going to be covering it. And so let's just take a look and see what they might be talking about presently. How do you think, I looked at that little screenshot, 32 billion valuation.
God.
I mean,
That's huge. That's more than Bernie Madoff.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so as we take a look, I'm going to keep it on mute for a second. We'll keep kind of going back and forth, but they aren't quite there in terms of their TV schedule. You can see on the right, it isn't necessarily that they're going to be covering this presently. Bloomberg Crypto at noon, I'm certain, will have a few things to say about this. We don't see him talking about it directly. Right now, we're talking about, ironically, innovation in the U.S. economy. So
Yeah. Well, they got to talk about something in the economy.
And, you know, we were talking about it too. We think this is more not just what I would call business media, which certainly it is, but it's also mainstream media. This is being covered by Good Morning America, I would expect, at some
Yeah.
level. And
Well, yeah,
they
you
have
understand, you know why, right?
no, I don't. Please
Well,
don't.
I mean, think about FTX was one of the biggest promoters of the Super Bowl last year. And so I mean, think of how many commercials you had. Tom Brady, you had Giselle Bundchen, you had Mr. Wonderful, you had Stephen Curry. Like you brought in a lot of Main Street people into this organization. So yeah, a lot of people are going to want to know what happened, and they're going to want to get coverage, because it doesn't just apply to the crypto world. This is the first time I think you've seen a large cryptocurrency exchange actually touch. Well, I don't want to say that because there's been quite a few. This is probably the most mainstream of all the crypto scandals that's happened thus far.
And you know what? I can't believe you actually said that. I've got, and right on cue, this is like you and I reading each other's mind. I've got the clip from Good Morning America where they talk essentially about that trip that we took with Sam Bankman-Fried, the company FTX, the Super Bowl commercials, and the people. Let me go ahead and play that as we kind of await any kind of live coverage that we might see out there.
Cryptocurrency of the future. This morning, Sam Bankman-Fried faces sentencing for old-fashioned crime, lying, cheating, stealing.
This kind of fraud, this kind of corruption is as old as time.
Bankman-Fried became a billionaire at 30, hiring celebrities to hype his exchange, FTX.
You just need FTX.
Tom Brady.
FTX collapsed in late
Just need
2022.
FTX.
Bankman-Fried siphoned billions in customer funds to keep a privately controlled hedge fund solvent. Prosecutors said he deserves as much as 50 years in prison. His lawyers have asked for a much lighter sentence of no more than 6 years, pointing to this interview with our George Stephanopoulos to argue Bankman-Fried has accepted responsibility.
But you're ultimately responsible.
And ultimately, absolutely. I should have been on top of this. And I feel really, really bad and regretful that I wasn't. And a lot of people got hurt. And that's on me.
But prosecutors accused Bankman-Fried of gambling repeatedly with other people's money and pushed for a stiff sentence because of his unmatched greed and hubris. Defense attorneys balked, saying he's quirky, not conniving. Sam is not the evil genius depicted in the media or the greedy villain described at trial.
The state is seeking a number of enhancements to his current sentence. And what they're saying is that he violated public trust, which is an enhancement. He affected more than 25 people significantly in a financial way.
Prosecutors will tell the judge here today, Robin, that Bankman-Fried defrauded customers out of $8 billion and deserves to go away for a long time. But defense attorneys will say, look, he deserves a chance to become a humanitarian and philanthropist. Robin?
Oh, did you catch the words mean things? To become, hold on. I can't let this. A philanthropist, a philanthropitarian? What, I mean, and a humanist, like he's going to give money, right? And remember, we talked about that, and that is part of the mainstream media narrative is that he's a good guy, and if he gives the money to good causes, political or otherwise, that he'll maybe get a lighter sentence because his intent was true. Not it wasn't that his crime wasn't convicted on all 7 counts. He was. And now what's crazy to me, between 50 years and 6 years.
Yeah, it's a big difference, right? I think it's interesting that they're adding to it. I mean, those 2 charges that they, or the add on top of, those aren't insignificant. So it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. I love how they're like, give him an opportunity. He had the opportunity. He had $32 billion and like a 3-year opportunity to do it. And guess what? He
do 32 billion reasons not to be doing what he did. Yeah. And you know what's interesting to me? Like I see that number and being the analytical guy that I am, when we talk about the assets that were lost from the customer base, the number that's been thrown about is 8 billion. So the valuation at 32 is one thing. And he started to take the risk during a down market, took it to 8 billion, started exchanging money back and forth between Alameda, the sister company, and his company, FTX. And then I'm always fascinated when you tell the story and it gets, some stories it's like, oh, I've heard that story before, maybe not hear it. But I want you to tell this story again, basically about how Binance took him down based on what he was doing and the whole buyout options between he and CZ from Binance. Can you just share with listeners a little bit of that backdrop, how it went down?
Yeah. So there's a lot to this story, actually. So CZ and both SBF were lobbying different senators, and they were trying to work to get favorable things passed. And first, CZ heard that SBF was actually bad talking him to politicians, and that upset CZ a little bit. Around this same time, there was an article printed by CoinDesk that was alluding to the fact that there was a chance that FTX was insolvent. So around this time, you hear CZ get mad that SBF is bad talking him. You find out that all of a sudden maybe FTX is insolvent, which is their FTT token, right? Was the bulk of their valuation, right? So essentially that 32 billion was inflated to even begin with. So FTT is the bulk of that 32 billion. They are both a market maker and an exchange, right? Which is how they got the price to go up so high. So CZ finds out that they could be insolvent, and he happens to be one of the biggest holders of FTT token. So he goes to Twitter and says, hey, I'm selling all of my 2 million FTT token. And once CZ did that, it literally caused everybody to run to FTX to pull their money. So the 8 billion that he owes is the actual customer funds that he cannot fulfill of whose money he had in accounts.
Dionna, hold on 1 second. I'm going to jump in as Bloomberg takes this on.
Yeah.
In the maximum of 40 to 50 years. He's back at Bloomberg. It is David Gura, and it's day one of reporting for him. So he's outside a courthouse in New York. Welcome back, David. Good to see you. The worst case scenario seems to be a gap between 110 years and 50 years. So it could be quite a brutal day of sentencing behind you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And it's a wide range, as you say, and our understanding is that these proceedings are now underway. Sam Bankman-Fried, dressed in a tan prison jumpsuit, is in the courtroom with his counsel, his new counsel. He took on new lawyers after he was found guilty of orchestrating that massive fraud. And our understanding is that they have gone through what's known as the pre-sentence report. That is kind of this corpus, this document that details the fraud that Sam Bankman-Fried committed, some biographical information about him as well. And now they're getting down to brass tacks, and that is what kind of sentence he should face. And there is, as you would expect, a lot of disagreement among the parties about that. At the core of this, and it's something that we talked about a lot on the Big Take podcast, is how much money was actually lost here. So in that massive fraud, investors lost money, customers lost money, and lenders lost money. There was this surprising development a few months back, Manus, and that is in the bankruptcy proceedings. Bankruptcy lawyers said they actually feel pretty good that they're going to be able to make a lot of the folks who lost money whole again. And what the defense is saying is, given that, essentially, no harm, no foul. You can't fault Sam Bankman-Fried for this, the entirety of this massive fraud. Prosecution saying that's not the way this works effectively. You can't rob Fort Knox, buy a bunch of lottery tickets, win the lottery, then say, look, we've all turned out better than we did before all of this happened. So that's really the crux of what's going to be happening today, haggling among the defense, the prosecution, the judge over what that sentencing should be.
And it's interesting when you look at the likes of Bernie Madoff, of course, his $20 billion Ponzi scheme, sentenced in 2009 to 150 years. Sort of sets a precedent, because this was one of the largest white-collar crimes going on behind you that sentencing is taking place in. It's about messaging as well to the industry, David, isn't it?
You want to take that on? I mean, you said it, messaging to the industry.
It's huge. I mean, if you slap him on the wrist, you're essentially opening the door for scams to happen in cryptocurrency, and that's just not something that we can afford to happen right now.
No, scams galore. I mean, this is the crime of, I don't know, if
you can see sort of how resonant that.
If Madoff got, what did they say, 150 years?
150 years, yeah, for $20 billion. Now, his did extend over 25 years, right? So it was a little more elaborate, but just as criminal, in my opinion.
All right, let's keep listening. There's a lot of great detail being provided here.
Just how much of a deterrent this is going to be, but it's certainly something that's being brought to bear in this sentencing memo from the prosecution. They want, yes, a punitive side of this. They want Sam Bankman-Fried to be punished, but they do want a message to be sent to folks in crypto, in finance broadly, that you cannot have this kind of malfeasance, concoct this kind of scheme and execute it, and not expect to pay some sort of penalty for it.
Well, if you listen to Brian Armstrong over at Coinbase, he talks about the ability to start a new chapter on the back of this. David, thank you very much.
Interesting that they mentioned Brian Armstrong. I don't know if you saw yesterday, speaking of all the legal wrangling, that Coinbase found out from the judge at SEC that they're basically proceeding with the trial. They were looking for a summary judgment that would have dismissed the charges from the SEC against Coinbase for selling securities. So now we're at risk for Coinbase not.
No, we're not. No way. No way. Not with Coinbase being the facilitator of the ETFs. There's no way. Where's Coinbase going to go? You now have all of the biggest money in America and maybe even the world funneling through Coinbase. That's something that's an asset they can't afford to push away like
No,
that.
see, I'll push back on that. I mean, we're tracking this all-time high towards a $3 trillion asset class. So when you're looking at it and it's 2.65 trillion all in, I don't know exactly how much resides on Coinbase's exchange. And I'm with you in, fundamentally, yes, they are the on-ramp and off-ramp for the space. But if I'm Fidelity or any of the banking institutions, can't you just say that, and I'm thinking more like Gary Gensler at the SEC, and say, I'm okay with Coinbase going away. We at Fidelity, we at BlackRock, we can handle not only the institutional aspect of it, but the retail aspect of it. And
how are they handling it? They're not a cryptocurrency exchange.
No, not at all.
So they're handling it. How do they handle the demand without an exchange there? I mean, Bittrex went away. What U.S. exchanges even exist?
Oh, do you want me to go to the bad side of this, like the dark side? I'm just going to take the other side now, because I do agree with you. Yeah. But if you look at what's happening with, is it Prometheum, the digital asset security exchange? Yeah, they are a licensed broker for this space, and they are being set up to be the onboarding for crypto securities. And so once we don't have the regulation to define what a security is right now, the courts are helping to define what a security is. And so as that transpires, this court case is just going to gum up, in my opinion, the works for a couple, 2.5, 3 years. Is it going to make things faster or slower? Slower. That's all. The adoption rate that you and I are looking for.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be slower. I mean, but and let's be clear about this. The adoption rate we're looking for is preferably Bitcoin and not necessarily the USDC, right? So we're opposed to stablecoin in government's hands, but we're very pro a free, open bordered currency out of government hands. And that's what we want to see adoption of.
I want to see all these different, the innovation is what excites me, the growth and the potential of utilizing the technology to the benefit of humanity. That's what gets me going. So I don't like the idea that USDC could be used for surveillance purposes. That's not very cool or exciting for a lot of, well, and not even USDC. That's not fair to USDC. I would say more CBDCs, if you'd agree.
Sure. Yep. CBDC, not USDC. So I agree completely. And the other thing is, in this gap that is growing in the US between the lower class and the upper class, right? Like I think they just released a poll that said the lower middle class annual income is now $150,000. So if you make $150,000 a year, you are lower middle class, right? So that gap is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. When you take the money we spend on banks and the ability to hold our money, grab our money, borrow money, use money, like all of those things, and you start adding those up, wouldn't it be better if I could just borrow the money from my friend, put it in a smart contract, have them get the fees? So you're essentially taking this organization that makes money off of lending money and putting it back in the hands so that you can have true peer-to-peer lending assets. And that just gives us more money in the long run. And if we can do it, and there's a means to do it, why not? We don't need banks anymore. Sorry, you guys. Please don't cancel us.
Oh my goodness. It's fine. We know that. It's another invisible episode. Another invisible to our two viewers out there. We're sorry that you were dropped from the algorithm here in real time, but it happens when we speak from the heart, when we speak the truth. So that's fine. We'll live with that. We'll take that consequence. It is true that the technology can supersede the structure, right? And that's the opportunity that is clear to me. And when we look at it too, I think the behavior, when you recognize, what'd you say, 150,000 puts you in the lower half.
Yep.
So the behavior now is like with inflation creeping up. And by the way, I think of inflation not as just a percentage, because this year it's less than 2%, but it is in terms of how much. We always think of it as like, oh, inflation is down, meaning that prices are down. Inflation and pricing is not the same, because once I've added price on top of price on top of price, just because I add a little bit more price than I did the previous year, it doesn't mean that my airline ticket didn't go from $200 to $220 to 255 to now it's only up 2%. So now it's only going to be 260 this year. My numbers and math might be off a little bit, but that's a good example of how to think about things. So this is why, in my opinion, I want to get your thoughts on this. The meme coin mania, the willingness for people to bet more, to gamble more, is because this return that you're going to get from the 4 or 5%, the return that you may or may not get from the stock market, at least, you know, in this little crypto space or on my trip to Las Vegas, I got to, not financial advice. Your risk tolerances are different than ours, but I do empathize with people who are putting their money into play and might be risking more than they should be risking, because that's the only way they can catch up or keep up.
Yeah, I mean, when you've zapped hope from everybody, they have nothing to lose, right? So why not? Why not go big? I've got nothing to lose anyways, and why not try to hit the jackpot? I actually just saw another guy come into a coin chat the other day and say, hey, if any of you want to make it real big, go find you a meme coin with a dog on it and buy it. And it's like guaranteed, you know, 4x, 5x returns. I'm not guaranteed. That wasn't me, by the way. So don't.
Yeah, that's not financial advice at all.
But that's actually the thoughts of everybody right now, is jumping on this meme coin. And if you saw our stats, you know, those AI coins are doing really well right now. I mean, it makes sense for people. People need hope, and maybe this is the thing that's giving them hope.
Have you seen the new hot meme coin?
No.
Oh yeah. Let me take us there. You know, we'll see what happens with the sentencing here in a second. But as we look at the top meme coins,
you know, I can empathize. That, to me, a little bit, that's what got me into cryptocurrency, was because I discovered the technology. I got fascinated by it. I got hired to do marketing for it. I actually got hired to do marketing, so I had to learn it. I got fascinated by the technology, but then I got a lump sum payment in crypto right before the bull market. And so I'm going through, I'm spending. And as I'm spending, I've got more. And I was like, this is the most amazing thing ever. Like, I can't spend it fast enough. And then the next year it crashed and life was miserable. But that initial, like, I hit the jackpot, I gambled, I won big, is addictive.
Yeah, it sure is. And so this is what I was going to point out. We've talked about Dogecoin extensively. Haven't talked as much about Shiba or Pepe, but this is the one, and we have talked about Floki. So we're kind of filling in the middle here. The one that I saw more about is dog with hat. Okay. Dog, it ain't dog with hat. And that's, I'm using the colloquialism ain't, because I know I shouldn't say it, but they just kind of truncated with to whiff, which makes it funny, makes this humorous, I suppose. But look how much the market cap is for dog with hat.
With hat, and the ticker's WIF.
Yeah. I mean, people are just having fun with it. I mean, 3.2, is that billion or yeah. Wow. Look at Dogecoin.
That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money for a nothing coin. I mean, meme coins by definition don't have any value placed in them. I will tell you, have somebody reach out to me. He wants to create a meme coin. He is down the path. And, you know, today with artificial intelligence, you can do that. And he's fully willing to disclose that there is no financial aspect to this. It's for entertainment purposes only. And all those other dynamics. But people are willing to, because they've seen what happened to Dogecoin. And look at the 7-day number percentage-wise on Doge.
I was just looking at those. I was just thinking, so a week ago, if I would have put $1,000 in Dogecoin, I would have made $410. That's crazy.
And look at, I mean, ranked 1,423 Dingo coin. This is what blows me away. Okay.
Holy
Notwithstanding
cow.
the legal aspect.
Did you see that 7-day?
Yeah.
That's like thousands of a percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
see, those are the coins that you try to look for to get into.
So what's crazy to me, what's blowing me away, is that the SEC is fighting. We can say what we want about Coinbase. We can say what we want about Ripple. We can say what we want about Library. But those seem to be what I would otherwise call good faith actors.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, this meme coin stuff is like running rampant. And the SEC is like tying these other companies up in court who could be good actors. And that's why I think the SEC, and here we go, we're not talking about things that are going to help the algorithm. But when we talk, we are going to be authentic, though. We are going to talk about innovation. We are going to talk about opportunity. And as I look at that, they're looking to tap the brakes on replacement of the financial institutions. And so there's a saying out there, don't fight the Fed.
No,
Is
we
that
don't
what's
have
really happening with all court cases? That's what I see. It's not what they say, it's what I see.
I don't think we have to fight the Fed. I think that the technology is doing it for us. And all we have to do is keep innovating and keep systems die. Things get reinvented, things
Yeah.
get replaced. The banking system is only a couple hundred years old, right? So who's to say it's always going to stay? Who's to say it's going to stay around? Like, who knows what 10 years looks from now, especially with AI, with metaverse, with blockchain, with all these innovative technologies that are coming out. I think a lot of industries are going to get torn upside down, and some of them need to be.
You know, and as you think about that and say that, this is how we'll know with the sentencing, because at some level, I intuitively believe that FTX and SBF were some sort of government operations. So if we get a sentence that is less than what Madoff got or what the cats from Enron received, then I'll know that the DOJ and the court systems and this case is in New York, which is kind of the financial capital of the world. His parents are very connected with the current. Now, this is Sam Bankman-Fried's parents are very connected with current government officials within the SEC. So if we end up and we've talked about the book that's been written in the narrative of the humanitarian aid of his philanthropic effort. If this thing comes back closer to 6 years than it does to 100 years, I don't want to be the one that told you so, but I'm telling you so in front. I'm not predicting anything. I'm just depicting the presence of our current country.
Here's the hard part, right? Here's where I think the argument for, this philanthropist who just went wrong or an actual scam artist is the backdoor that they had in the system. Is the fact that Alameda Research could go negative, is the fact that Alameda Research had special privileges in FTX that no other customer had. So when you're manipulating the software and you're manipulating the algorithms to give your other company a special benefit, that is 100% fraud. I don't care what. I don't care. Oops, I messed up on the booking. I don't care. Oops, I forgot to provide the oversight. You 100% put in a backdoor so that you could do illicit activities, and you did not tell your customers, and you spent their money, and that's fraud.
All right, so let's be clear too. When you bring up Alameda, and I'm checking my facts here, that's why I was looking at something. Caroline Ellison's parents, right? Her father was the head of the MIT economics department and hired Gary Gensler, who is now the chair of the SEC, who has also served as the chief financial officer for the election campaign of 2016 for a president whose name, or a former secretary of state who was married to a president whose name begins with C. It's one of the words it's one of the C words we don't say on this show. And her father, Glenn Ellison, effectively was Gary Gensler's boss.
Yeah. Why do you think she was so quick to roll? You honestly think when all this went down that everybody wasn't grabbing her and being like, this is what you need to do, and had her back and protect her? Like, and that was SBF's downfall, is maybe his, quirkiness doesn't allow him to be humble or to actually accept responsibility. But he goes on that tour talking about how it wasn't his fault, how he didn't mean to do it, how he's not accepting responsibility, and was still trying to actively raise while the company was falling. So, she did the right thing. I mean, she didn't do the right thing the whole time, but when everything fell, she covered her butt, and that was all. And SBF was trying to cover his, but he just obviously didn't listen in the same way she did. So
no, and something I heard the reporter say earlier, he indicated that there was going to be some wrangling between the lawyers and the judges. I felt like more like the sentencing was just a message that the judge was going to deliver, but it seems like they may be hearing oral arguments at this time to try to solidify that final decision, which is interesting to me because I felt like the cake was baked in terms of all the details. And for 6 months now, we've had the sentencing. He was found guilty on all charges. I didn't think that the jury was going to provide the sentencing. So I don't know how detailed this is, or if the judge is going to hear arguments and then deliberate and then deliver it. But my sense was that this thing was going to happen. So words that are going to be used here at the finish line may just be to placate the attorneys, but we will find out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think this is too uncommon because when you see sentencing phases for like murders or something like that, they usually have on that day where you can do impact statements. So both the people that were affected, if they want to, you know, whoever, if they want to talk on behalf of the person, if they want to talk on behalf of the victims. So I think you're going to see both the lawyers go back and forth. And I think you could also see some potential victims and or character witnesses come in to kind of go back and forth. And then after all of that, the judge goes through and actually gives his decision. So that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think the best thing you and I can do is just stay tuned to this. I don't, we,
Oh, you know,
are,
I will.
I know I will too. I'll be looking at it no matter what conversation, meeting, or dialogue I'll otherwise be having. And you and I can check back in on this later, but I just don't think they're going to deliver the live action that you and I were kind of looking for. I'm excited that we were able to kick off with our first live episode.
Yeah.
And let's sign off for now and just kind of get back together when information presents itself, and then we can dissect what actually transpired and where the crypto space is going to go from here. I will ask you this, not financial advice. Do you think this is going to have an adverse impact today? Or I think this is kind of baked into the current market cap. Is that fair, or where do you see things?
I do not think this is going to have a big effect. I don't know how his sentencing would really have any kind of implication aside from opening the door for bad actors, right? So if it's a light sentence, bad actors, listen, if you could steal $8 billion, would you steal $8 billion and then do 4 years in jail?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Like, who wouldn't? I might do it. Like,
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So why would you set that precedent so that people would come in and do it? That it has to be a harsh thing. So I just want to say too, before we sign off, thank you everybody for joining us. It was fun doing this live event. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date, and you can find out when our update video comes when SBF finally gets sentenced.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Dionna. Have a great day. We'll talk soon. Bye, y'all.